Welcome to the Juice Radio Talk Show. 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 Reality TV, church reviews. Let's talk happy love and marriage lifestyle. Come and talk with us. Come and share with us. Come and laugh with us. Come on and pray with us.
Regina and Clovis, special guests. You should be following your lead. Bless. Subscribe on YouTube. Listen on podcasts. We live on IG and Facebook. This episode is sponsored by Truth and Triumph Ministries.
A heartfelt thank you to all of our subscribers who joined us for this video. If you have not already subscribed, go to our YouTube channel, The Juice Radio and Talk Show. Subscribe and click on the notification bell to be alerted whenever we go live. Join our private Juice community. Go to www.thejuicecommunity.com and sign up for free. Join us, The Juice Radio and Talk Show. We have our Money Monday financial series. It is a lunch and learn program at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time on Mondays. Also on Monday, we have our reality series and hot topics at 7 p.m. Wednesdays, we have Bible study at 7:30 p.m. Thursdays, we have church news at 7:30 p.m. We also offer motivational moments, happy marriage lifestyle, news from a godly perspective, movie reviews, as well as our single moms club, Let's Talk Ex-Millennials, and of course, our Cooking with Clovis. Follow us on our podcast channel, The Juice Radio and Talk Show Podcast, streaming on all podcast platforms. A great big thank you to our podcast production company, Noye Podcast Productions. They can help you create your own podcast also. Contact them today at houseofnoye.com. Thank you to our sponsor, Custom Apparel Shop. Have them complete your embroidery work and silk screening needs. Do you need a logo created for your fashion apparel or company? Contact Israel Mason today. That is 786-657-7501. Thank you to our main sponsor, Truth and Triumph Ministries. Truth and Triumph Ministries, a ministry that cares about telling people the truth so they can triumph in life. Thank you, Truth and Triumph Ministries, for all you do.
Well, hello, and good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for joining my channel. If you have not already subscribed to my channel on my YouTube page, please do that. Go over there to the Juice Radio and Talk Show YouTube channel and subscribe today. Listen, you guys, we are continuing this conversation about bankruptcy, and today's episode is regarding bankruptcy fraud and the penalties that can happen with that. I want to welcome Succeeding 2 to the channel today. Thank you so much for filling in for Pastor Grant. How you doing, Succeeding 2?
Hi. Look, I don't know if anyone could fill in for her. She is amazing.
She is. Yes, Pastor Grant is on a much needed vacation. And so Succeeding 2 is filling in, and we're going to have this conversation. Listen, there is so much, and I got your private chat there. So that's perfectly fine. So listen, Succeeding 2, let's talk to the people about this bankruptcy fraud. But before we do that, let's go ahead and say hello to beautiful Erin, who's been here early, putting all this information in our chats for all of you viewers. She's saying hello. Please like and subscribe and share. Thank you, Erin, for being here. Thank you so very much. And she's put some more jewels and nuggets in the comment section for you guys. Thank you also, Succeeding 2, for you being here as well. She's also saying good morning to Erin. And I love how we have all the nice conversation in the chat. All right, so let's dive on in here for our Money Monday series. Now, today we're talking about bankruptcy fraud, and the penalties that can come along with that. Now, I'm going to read a little bit here about what some of the people have posted on Facebook. What is bankruptcy fraud? And in a nutshell, I like that this gentleman, his name is Attorney Alexander Hernandez. He wrote this, and I thought this was interesting. He says, and I apologize for that. I'm trying to get this thing out of here. In a nutshell, he says, when filing for bankruptcy, you must list all your assets and liabilities. Failure to do so could result in violations of bankruptcy laws and serious consequences, whether it's civil or fraud. Now, you guys, and succeeding to, have you heard or about some of these cases? Let me turn this other notification bell off. Let me turn that off. All right, done.
Yes.
Okay, so you've heard about some of these cases where people have filed fraudulent bankruptcies. I always think that some of these people, do they really think that they're not going to get caught?
I think that some people with some things are, I remember working with someone and I remember her saying, like, I don't think that they worry about the consequences. They just kind of figure, the worst that could happen is I get caught.
Well, that's not the worst that can happen. That's
correct. Correct. Especially.
Yeah. That is part of it. Now, listen, you guys, when you are filing bankruptcy, bankruptcy is meant to help people who are struggling financially and have no other way out. That's the main part. And so, along with everything else, people will do their best to try and take advantage of good systems. And I don't like that. I don't understand why a lot of people do it, but I call it the selfish reason, and it really is. But I do want to read something else here from this article that attorney Alexander Hernandez wrote. He actually updated this as of May 11, 2023. He says this. He says, bankruptcy fraud is a federal crime that is punishable by up to 5 years in federal prison and a fine up to $250,000. Now, let me pause, because that's not for the business side of it, because there's several different types of filings. One is for your personal filings, and another is for companies. Now, company filings, you could face up to 20 years in prison.
Right.
You do those Chapter 11s, you could serve up to 20 years in prison. But this one he's talking about the personal ones, the Chapter 7s or Chapter 13s. It says, and the fine cannot be discharged because bankruptcy fraud is a serious crime. It says it is important for every bankruptcy filer to be aware of the common type of bankruptcy fraud and the consequences associated with violating bankruptcy laws. Okay, so people, under the bankruptcy code, bankruptcy is defined in broad terms, could be committed by anyone involved in a specific case involving debtors, bankruptcies, attorneys, and even creditors. So succeeding to, tell me a little bit of information that you have on this bankruptcy fraud. What are some of the things that you would like to discuss?
Sure. Well, one of them was a case in Phoenix where he was in the financial field. So he was a financial loan officer, and he was sentenced to 15 years in prison in order to pay $22 million in restitution after being charged with bankruptcy and mortgage fraud schemes.
And see, and this is what these people want to do. They want to file bankruptcy to protect their assets. And that's what a chapter 13 can do. But then they're supposed to pay it back because there's a payment plan that comes along with that Chapter 13. And let's talk about some of these cases that have happened. I want to also say this part as far as the bankruptcy criminal acts. There's a civil fraud and a criminal fraud. There's two different types of fraud. It says the civil bankruptcy fraud does not amount to a criminal act, but it can still have serious consequences. For example, forgetting to list a creditor is not likely to qualify as bankruptcy fraud, but it is a creditor. But if a creditor is omitted on purpose, this could be considered civil fraud. So there are some people that when you're listing all your debt, they may forget one of their creditors to put down. And the bankruptcy lawyers and bankruptcy system, they're aware of that. So if you did not intentionally do that, they may not see that as a criminal fraud. They may see it as a civil fraud. So this is why it's very important to get all your information together. Now, if you find out there's an item that you did not list on your bankruptcy filing, then you need to immediately contact your bankruptcy filer, which whether that's your attorney or company or whoever's filing that for you, and you need to make them aware of it. And if they contact you and say, listen, there's this charge, there's this card, this information, what is this? Immediately get back to them and tell them what the information is. Because if the bankruptcy courts determine that you did that purposely by not putting that on there, then that could turn it over from a civil fraud to a criminal fraud.
That's true.
We've got to be very careful with that. Let me go ahead and have you chime in, Succeeding too.
Yeah. And there was another case in Atlanta where they had a person that, and this was interesting because they were sentenced to bankruptcy fraud and tax evasion. And sometimes people don't think about those things. Now, what this person did is, you know how when we hear about people that have embezzled money?
Yes.
Well, one thing, I guess, since we're not that type and no one, of course, that's listening, but, you know, just in case they want to share to some people that are not associated with them, that they just may hear in the pathways, you know, of course. But this particular person, they embezzled more than $120,000 in public funds,
Ooh.
But they needed to report that in their bankruptcy petition. And in addition to that, they needed to report it on their taxes.
My gracious. These people, listen, I don't know, you know, again, let me, since we're talking about this, let me do this. There is a case that I pulled up. Let's see. All right, let me do this. There's a case over here. It says here, this was August 2nd of 2022. And you can find these cases, you guys. When these things go to the public sites, they are available to the public. So your name could come up on some of these sites if you are being charged with bankruptcy fraud. They are shown on sites like the Department of Justice, the IRS sites. They're out there. So this one I pulled from the Department of Justice. It says, press release, 2 men indicted in separate bankruptcy fraud schemes. Now, you guys, it says San Juan, Puerto Rico, Jorge Drozier and Yamil Francisca Salgado were indicted by a federal grand jury in relation to separate bankruptcy fraud schemes, okay? It says Jorge was indicted in a bankruptcy fraud scheme for making materially false representations from May 2019 to 2021 in order to defraud creditors as part of a bankruptcy proceeding. Here's what he did. It says, additionally, he is charged with 9 counts of concealment of assets during his bankruptcy proceeding. 9. And 8 counts of making false statements. It says here, the indictment alleges that during his bankruptcy proceeding, Jorge concealed his assets and income by using a bank account in his adult son's name. This part, Succeeding too. When people think they can shift their money from their account and put it in a family member's name, and they think that the IRS and the government is not going to find out.
And you know, and that leads me to actually my next point, because they say that's pretty common, where people actually think that they can move money around in other families. You know, not only he did it with his child, but some people will do it with other family members.
Mm-hmm. And the IRS is going to find this information out. And again, bankruptcies were created to help people who were in dire financial straits. And you know, you didn't have a way out. But people, if you think that you're going to use bankruptcy to defraud the government and the IRS, and you may think, well, there's so many cases, they may not find out mine. Believe me, you might just be that case that they find out.
Exactly.
You might just be that case. Listen what Jorge says on here also. It said it further alleges that Jorge testified under oath that his mother was an elderly home and provided tax returns. He provided tax returns as part of the bankruptcy proceeding, where he claimed his mother was a dependent between the years 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2018. Now, he's writing her off on his taxes to get that tax break, right? Claiming her as a dependent. But guess what, Succeeding to? It says when in fact he knew his mother had passed away in 2011.
Oh, wow. Wow.
2011,
Wow.
his mother had passed away, and he's steady writing her as a dependent. So let me tell you, when they dig in, they're going to start getting everything. Everything.
Yes.
It says also that if convicted, Jorge may be sentenced to up to 5 years of imprisonment for each violation. For each. And remember back here, he had 9 and he had 13. 9 and he had several others. 8 counts and then another. Listen, Jorge, it was not worth it, Jorge. It was not worth it.
Not at all.
Not worth it. Not worth it. And besides that, he has to pay a $250,000 fine.
Wow.
And 3 years of supervised release. Ooh. Succeeding to what else you got for us?
And I'm thinking that person is probably flagged in a system. And when I say that, because I know some people don't know, like when you go to a bank, I only know since I've worked on that side, when you go to a bank and you take money out, some people are obsessed with cash, like, oh, I have to pay in cash. So once I was at a Best Buy, and I saw someone, she was buying, I am not joking, a refrigerator that was $10,000 plus. She had a bank envelope with $10,000 that she was counting out. What she doesn't realize is that anytime that you go to a bank, the person isn't going to advertise this to you. They're not going to have a presentation, but they're going to fill out a form. That form is based on the amount of cash that you have taken out, and you are reported to someone else. And so if you've ever had something that's happened on your account, and they're not going to ever let you know what went on.
Right.
So I was having this conversation with a friend of mine, and she said, you know what? I bet that's what happened to my sister, because her husband passed and she sold a car to someone and they gave her cash. Well, she doesn't know how much it was, but she figured it had to be a sizable amount because this person was really obsessed with this antique car that he had. And so when she deposited that money after that, she was not able to take out money without going to the bank. So, but they didn't tell her. So they're not going to tell you. They're just going to report you, and it's going to be that form that's completed. And so I bet those people are also flagged. And, you know, because this stuff goes to the FBI, they're also flagged in their systems as well.
Yeah. And that's why they don't want to put the money. If some of them don't want to put the money in the bank, they want to use this cash, like you said. There's also another form of bankruptcy fraud that people do, and they file bankruptcy because they don't want to pay child support.
Oh, wow.
You guys know that? Yeah, it says a fraudulent use of bankruptcy and other court proceedings to defraud creditors or defraud children of child support payments are a grave concern. It says the U.S. Attorney's Office remains vigilant in the effort to hold accountable those who would defraud the government, said the U.S. Attorney Mildred. Now, what happens is it says that this particular person, he was trying to not pay his child support, so he decided he would file bankruptcy so that he would not have to pay his child support. Now, I got a question with that, because we all know when you have student loans, certain student loans, or you cannot add to your bankruptcy. They don't go away. Student loans stay. But child support, I was surprised when I found that child support, you could file bankruptcy and not pay the child support. I think there needs to be something different with that. What's your thoughts on that part with child support?
You know, I definitely agree with that. But I think that there are so many ways that people, it must be another loophole for them, because I remember listening to a program and because it was not of interest to me, I know the person was saying that paying child support was not something that they can force you to pay, and that there was a loophole that was a way out. And maybe that was one of the loopholes, but maybe there's, you know, more that they probably need to dig into and get addressed. Yes.
Yeah, because that's, listen, this gentleman on here, he even had accounts of his grandmother's name. Oh my goodness. This is a lot. Let me read another article here. There's a South Texas couple. I got this off the official website of the United States government. Now, let me tell you, listen, the information is there, you guys. It's public information. So this one is dated February of 2013. And it says a South Texas couple sentenced in bankruptcy fraud. And this is in Houston. It says Michael Giventers, 53, formerly of Brownville, has been ordered to prison for 5 years following his conviction of conspiracy to commit bankruptcy fraud. The United States Attorney Kenneth Magnan announced today he pled guilty to charge in the 2012 along with his wife, Florida resident Julia. Now, here's another thing. If you are husband and wife and y'all filing together, and wives, you better let your husband know you do not want to get caught up in that. Let me tell you what happened with them. It says on here, here's another one. Contractor and his wife charged with bankruptcy fraud, money laundering, and wire fraud. A North Kingston self-employed contractor who flipped houses and his wife have been charged in federal court with executing schemes to conceal substantial assets from the United States Bankruptcy Court in Providence, as well as money laundering and wire fraud. Oh my goodness, these people, they had businesses and they were transferring money out of them and so forth. And it's just so much. They were concealing money. It says here, it says, additionally, Ernest and Brenda Ritchie allegedly falsely claimed under oath that Ernest Ritchie held a $200,000 mortgage in the name of another person for the New Hampshire property that in fact he owned and for which he was collecting rent. Again, they think that they can get away with putting the properties in other people's names so that they can do this bankruptcy fraud. It's just crazy. But it doesn't stop there, you guys. I'm going to say this real quick, and then I'm going to have Succeeding to chime in. There's also people who are in the legal business, the legal area, the legal arena, the professional arena, that are also filing bankruptcy frauds. Here's a story I got from the Department of Justice. This was dated March 28 of 2023. A former law firm partner arrested for bankruptcy fraud. A law firm partner. It says that there are multiple false statements that he lied to the bankruptcy court and the IRS about. He purported receipts of millions of dollars in order to receive the protections of bankruptcy and keep his assets, including a multi-million-dollar residence and an Aston Martin sports car, while not paying his bills. It's too much. It's too much. Succeeding, what's your thoughts? I know you have to run in more. What's your thoughts?
And we could definitely see where their priorities are. They just are just greedy. They're operating with a spirit of greed. So they're not even thinking, because these are professionals that know the law. Mm-hmm. They know the consequences. So they're not just, some person walking down the street that doesn't know what's going on. You're talking about people that are educated in that area. And they know that credit card fraud, people, when they think about bankruptcy fraud, they don't think about, oh, wow, credit card fraud. So running a credit card up that you have no intention of paying is part of that. That identity theft is part of that. Mortgage fraud is, still all falls under that umbrella, as well as money laundering, mail and wire fraud. And the FBI is working they're working with federal agencies. They're working with the Internal Revenue Service. Mm-hmm. They're working with a whole group of 70 plus task force in order to identify these issues.
Yes, they have a whole issue that can, a whole department. They got several departments that are working this and several people. And get this, you guys, if some of you are like, well, how in the world did they find that out? How in the world did they know that? There's no way. How did they find that out? Let me tell you something. On this article that I found here, written by attorney Alexander Hernandez, he says this: bankruptcy fraud criminal investigations. Bankruptcy fraud can be discovered in several ways. Y'all ready? For example, bankruptcy fraud can be reported by family members.
Yep, exactly. They have a hotline.
Oh, yes. If you are doing bankruptcy fraud and your family members are aware of it, and let me tell you, a lot of times I think what happens is these family members, they probably mad, they're probably going through something, but they have the ability to report, or maybe they just want justice to be done. They want things to be done right. There are some honest people out there, and they don't mind if you're a family member. They don't let the IRS know, okay? Also, other ways that people can find out about bankruptcy fraud, colleagues at work can report you.
They sure can.
Former business partners can report you. Get this one, you guys, or ex-spouses. Ooh, that angry ex-spouse.
That's something.
Ooh, that angry ex-spouse is like, ooh, I'm going to tell. Also, creditors can also serve as a source of information for the trustee. Okay, the creditors, if the creditors are like, no, you have me down here. There was a landlord who, there was a case, and a landlord, his tenant, actually it was Tawanda Braxton. She had filed bankruptcy.
Oh, yeah.
And she was renting a property.
Exactly.
And her landlord was like, oh, no. I know you have these other businesses, because remember, they fill out applications and they have all their income, their assets and everything on these applications. And this landlord actually dug in, and he started searching a whole bunch of stuff, and he reported her.
Oh, yeah.
He reported her. And listen, they were like, oh, no, you lied. Mm-mm.
Right. You're saying that you only have $69, or it was some small amount that I remember seeing that she said that she had to live on.
Yes. And the landlord found out that allegedly she had other businesses, and she was putting stuff in the other business names and putting stuff in family members' names and all this. And also it alleges that she lowered the estimated value of her home.
Yes.
Instead of giving the true value. That's another form of bankruptcy fraud, you guys. When you go in, they're going to ask you, what do you think the value of your home is? And if you tell them this amount, they can check and verify what that is. And if it's determined that you intentionally told them the wrong amount, that could be considered bankruptcy fraud.
Yes.
And that's what happened in her case as well as others. So it really does not benefit you to tell these lies. It says the bankruptcy court website located in your district has links that provides information on how to report fraud and include contact information. All right. It says, for example, an email can be sent to the ustp.bankruptcy.fraud.usdog.gov. The U.S. trustee can also be contacted by mail at the Office of the U.S. Trustee. Attention, Office of Criminal Enforcement, George C. Young Federal Building and Courthouse, 400 West Washington Street, Suite 1100, Orlando, Florida, 32801. Now, it also says there's another way that people can find out if you have committed bankruptcy fraud, or they can report if they think you're doing bankruptcy fraud. Get this, you guys, public records. Public records are a great source of information. And not only that, you guys, social media. Oh, social media is another source. Listen, people out there, they're posting, look what I got today. Look at my new baby, brand new car, brand new this, brand new that, so forth or whatever. They can come after all that stuff. And also it says here, trustees also use private companies similar to the companies that perform background checks for additional information. Also, the trustees should be able to determine potential fraud by reviewing the documents provided by the filer, creditors, and all other attorneys, and by questioning that filer. There's so many ways that they can find information to determine if some of this stuff they feel is not valid and not true. Again, if you have money and you're calling it mattress money and you think that they're not going to find out because you didn't put it in the bank, they may find out. And is it worth that jail time? Because now when you found that you have tried to defraud the government and you have to now get lawyers because now you're being, thought to have to be sentenced to jail. You have lawyers, you have time in jail. Think about it. That money that you had under the mattress, was it worth it? Because it's all going to be spent with your lawyer fees.
Right.
You wait. So it's not worth it. It is not worth it, especially, thank you, Holy Spirit, for family members, for their loved ones to be taken away from their children. The government doesn't care if you got small children. They're not going to say you get to stay home.
No.
They don't do that. They're not going to say you get to stay home. What's your next thing you like to add succeeding to before I go on to this next one?
I think about, when you think about this, it just goes really deep, like how you mentioned something with respect to people being able to report you. So I know two specific cases. I worked at a bank and I worked for a couple of financial advisors at this particular branch. And I noticed when I first got there that there were these people that were coming in. And the one guy looked like the guy from what's the FBI show that used to come on like in the old days? It was like an FBI. It was called maybe it was called FBI.
Okay.
And do you remember that? It's an old show, probably like Nick at Night. And they would come in, name, rank, and serial number. It was just two of them. And this guy looked like the guy from the FBI. And from that TV show. And I noticed that they kept coming in and they would go into this conference room and it would always be older people coming in and I didn't know what was going on. And then once I got to know the people at the branch, because I worked for the financial, advisor. So we were located there, but we didn't work for the branch. And so then I found out that their branch manager at the bank had stolen. She was doing something with these IRAs, and she was only targeting older people. And Indiana is a state where people get IRAs like they get checking accounts. So it's a town that's just kind of focused in that area, I guess, so to speak. And so these are people that were just letting them roll over. And they said that she had a gambling addiction. They did not suspect her of fraud. They just knew she went to the casino and that she was gambling all the time. So they thought that she was winning. So then what happened was there was one person that came in for their account and they wanted to cash in. And they said, I'm not leaving here until she happened not to be there. They had to call someone else. And that started that investigation of that person. Wow. And that's how she was reported. And I heard when I got downtown Chicago up that same bank about someone that worked with another lady. She always had these big parties and, because people like that, because they like to showboat, they are not able to, they live in a different way. And she always had all this money and she had this big party at her home. So of course they're seeing this home. They know where she works and they're thinking, okay, we do well, but you seem to be doing, better than. And so she got reported, with respect to that. And so we don't think about that, but that is something that happens where people do report people. And I don't think these people take into consideration, but I don't know if they care because these are people like you've mentioned that are in this field. They say, like, we think of it as private citizens. No, these are business owners. These are corporate CEOs. These are real estate agents, politicians, loan officers, like you mentioned, attorneys, they even see bankruptcy attorneys. So who doesn't know better than them? And the bankruptcy petition preparers, they say, have all been in areas where they've seen those cases.
It's a lot. It is. And again, it's not just limited to the business people. It could just be the people who's a regular mom and pops, and stuff like that as well. Just common, filers. There's another story. And I want to say hello to BB. Hey, BB, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for saying hello. Joseph is here. Hey, Joseph.
Hey, Joseph.
Joseph said, good afternoon, beautiful people. Hey, Joseph.
How are you?
All right. So let's look at this one real quick. There's a story about, I think this one is in California. And this lady, Roxana Hawks, a 43-year-old woman, and filed for bankruptcy in March of 2008 in California and claimed that she owned no real estate. She claimed she didn't have no real estate, but she seemed to forget, however, about her house in France.
Oh my.
This lady is like, oh, Go ahead,
Oh,
Succeed.
you mean the house in the south of France?
Child,
Oh, you want to know about my house in the south of France?
You're like, wait, I'm in California. I'm in the United States. I didn't know you wanted to know about that stuff too.
Right.
Yes, they want to know about overseas as well. It says here, this seems odd given that she purchased the house with her ex-husband in 1999 for the equivalent in France of $182,000. As you can see, that's quite nice. It said Hawk was prosecuted for bankruptcy fraud about 4 years after her bankruptcy discharge was entered. So they can come after you at any time.
Oh, they can.
They can come after you at any time. To think that you've gotten away with something. It says that her sentencing by the United States Judge William O'Haid was to serve 1 year of probation. Here's another story. Dripping in Jewels, they titled this one. 54-year-old San Diego resident Ophelia D'Austin filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy protection with her husband in the United States Bankruptcy Court for the Southern District of California in 2008 with about $631,000 in debt, including their mortgage. At the time of filing, she claimed that she owned about $1,000 worth of fur and jewelry. Okay, y'all ready? Here she go. In truth, Ophelia was holding on to quite a stash. This story is so funny. It says there was a 1.64 carat diamond ring, a diamond-studded gold bangle, a 10-carat white gold ring, a large 16 diamond men's ring, 3 Movado watches, a yellow and white gold ring with 9 diamonds surrounded by baguettes, and 1 yellow gold engagement setting with 1 large diamond surrounded by smaller diamonds and baguettes. When I tell you they were very detailed with this jewelry,
They were.
It says clearly Ophelia and her husband didn't follow the rules of the disclosure. Their bankruptcy discharge was denied. She pled guilty to knowingly and fraudulently concealing the jewelry and watches from the bankruptcy court and her creditors. United States District Judge Michael M. Anello sentenced D'Austin to serve 3 years of probation. She lucky she ain't getting no real jail time. And then it says here, both represented by lawyers. It says, you're probably wondering how this could happen and whether the bankruptcy lawyer hired by each of these women could have done a better job. Personally, the writer is saying they doubt it. If someone's going to lie, they'll do it so whether they have a bankruptcy lawyer or not. Both of these people cope to the fact that they intentionally lied about their assets. No lawyer could have shaken it out of them. And then it goes on to say this, and I want everybody to hear this part. And succeeding to, I know you have to go in a moment, and that's okay if you just log off, not a problem. It says, it's not worth the lie. Though the sentencing in both of these cases could have been worse, I'm sure either of these women had to pay their lawyers a tidy sum to get them through the process. That money could have gone to paying out their Chapter 13 bankruptcy, which is true. It said, or either working out deals with the creditor. Hawks, for example, had $24,000 in unsecured debt when she filed for her bankruptcy. If you're filing for bankruptcy, you know, when you're head over your head, you can be honest with your lawyers and work through any issues, or you can lie and suffer the consequences. It's your choice, and they're absolutely right. It is your choice. If you want to file knowingly false information, know that you may become one of these stories that people have public access to read about. Succeeding to, what's your closing thoughts? As I know you have to log out if you're in a moment.
Yeah. And one thing I think about is we're in a time period where people are so focused on what other people have, and they are just obsessed with that. I mean, you think about how many people, I mean, I'm not a person to post a car. Maybe if I was a teenager, I would probably post a car, and not judging anyone that does, but those are things that people definitely look at. So when you're talking some of these high-end cars, I mean, we could see it with reality TV. Look how they've come, you know, they've gotten these people like, I don't want to say any names, but like this particular family, And they were really going into, how they only buy certain things and they only wear certain clothes. And we saw what happened with them. And then we look at like on Real Housewives of New Jersey, we could see with respect to mortgage, fraud and how it affects both partners when that occurs. So
Right.
it's not a way around it unless you were a person that did not file taxes with your spouse. And then they do have that injured, you can, do, but you would have to not be on that return, because if you're tied to that mortgage, you're tied to that situation. And
Yeah.
then we see it with, even on Real Housewives of Atlanta. And then you think about on the other one, Salt Lake, and even how these people are all people that were look at what I have, because this is a look at what I have world. And people look at what someone has on TV. And for some reason, they think, oh, like they saw Real Housewives of Atlanta. Oh, that was such a nice Gucci jogging suit that XYZ had on, but they don't even know that was real. And I guess because they see it on TV and they assume that these people have money, they don't think about those people having counterfeit items, but they're counterfeit people, because when they got Jen Shaw, they talked about her having counterfeit purses, counterfeit jewelry. So she didn't only have stuff that was real, she also, and somehow they must sort through that stuff. I guess the DOJ doesn't want any counterfeit stuff when they're doing a sale. So they sort through that stuff to even determine what is counterfeit. And then these people, they determine that. And the last thing I want to add is bankruptcy. It not only affects the creditors and businesses and financial institutions, but it affects us, because we're going to have higher, loan fees, higher credit card, payments with respect to the interest. And that's all falling down. Just like in stores, we know when there's theft, it affects all of us.
Yes, it does. And that part, it does affect all of us. Eventually, it will affect all of us. Succeeding to, thank you so much for your great commentary. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you. You're welcome back on the panel anytime.
Thank you for having me.
Have a great day. Thank you
as well. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. So you guys, this bankruptcy information, bankruptcy fraud, is it worth it? It is not. Now, these were some large cases that we spoke about regarding these arrests or these people who got penalized for their bankruptcy fraud. But it does not minimize that you also, as an individual, you may not have as much luxuries as them. It does not matter. The IRS, the government, they will come after you for whatever amount. So if you're going to file bankruptcy, please make sure that you're listing everything that the bankruptcy attorney is advising you to list. Make sure that you let them know, thank you, Holy Spirit, if you have any joint accounts with any family members, any joint real estate, any joint assets. They don't just want to know about yours only. They want to know what you are connected to as well. And you've got to let them know that information. And when you're going to file bankruptcy, let the other people know, let the other, family members or whoever it is that you're connected with know, listen, I got to file bankruptcy. I have to report this. And if they tell you, no, don't report it, it's, my name is on it too. You have to let them know I have to do what is right, because jail time could come to not only them, but it can also come to that other person. I want to read this part also on this article that I got off of the Department of Justice. And it says here, the relief offered by federal bankruptcy proceedings can be life-saving for honest individuals who have fallen on hard times due to legitimate reasons. Unfortunately, bankruptcy can also be used for wrongdoers for a variety of sinister reasons. So we have to be careful with this. And it says on here, this not only causes creditors to lose money, but also results in higher fees and even higher taxes for the innocent. That's exactly what Succeeding To is just telling us. It can cause higher fees, higher interest rates for all of us. And it says here also, we urge the public to report bankruptcy fraud by contacting the U.S. Trustee Program at the ustp.bankruptcy.fraud@usdoj.gov, or to the FBI by calling 787-987-6500 or visiting tips.fbi.gov. This is valuable information. Now, again, make sure that if you're going to file bankruptcy, you have a long conversation with your bankruptcy attorney. Make sure you get all your information, and don't just think because you transfer all your assets to your family member's name before you went to your bankruptcy attorney that it won't be found out. You're actually in an attempt to defraud the bankruptcy court. So don't transfer the information. I would recommend, you can take my recommendation or not. I would say, please do not attempt to switch out money or switch out bank accounts or put properties in other people's names and so forth, because that could be a big no-no on them. Joseph said this in the chat. He says, one of the biggest problems you can find yourself in is forgetting to file all information. Absolutely, Joseph. Absolutely. He says, think it through, because you don't want to be thought of by the judge as an asset hider. That's right. I mean, there's a thing as, thank you, Joseph, for that. There's a such thing as saying, I forgot this one credit card because I got 20, 30 credit cards, so I forgot to file that. A judge may be like, okay, I understand that. But when you purposely, or when you say, well, there's 10, 15 cards that you didn't file because those you still had limits on and you still wanted to use them, that could be frowned upon. So it is not worth it. It is not worth it. Bankruptcy is meant to help those who are in substantial problems with their finances, who are seeking a way to get out, thank you, Holy Spirit, who are seeking a resolution to their problem, and is not meant to be defrauded. And when you think that you're not going to be one of those that the bankruptcy courts will find, or bankruptcy judge will come back and say, hey, or the IRS or the Department of Justice is not going to come back and say, hey, you did this. If you think you're not going to be that person, you need to think again. Thank you, Joseph. He says, I have seen judges find asset transfers within the previous 60 days, and they throw the entire bankruptcy out, and you have to start over again. There you go. There you go. Start all over again. And then you better think, now, if that new file that you do is going to come before that same judge, they're probably going to look at you like, are they going to scrutinize you now? I don't know. Let me finish reading this article here. It says, if you're charged and convicted of bankruptcy fraud, even if you don't serve prison time, a felony conviction will still result in serious consequences. For example, certain states don't allow convicted felons to own guns or firearms. A U.S. passport will be revoked during the time you're in prison or on probation. And any other countries may have a travel ban for convicted felons. Yes, listen, if you get convicted, it's not just to say you can't file these taxes or you did this or that. It goes way beyond that. Come on, now they're talking about taking away your U.S. passport. Also says visas can also be revoked. And permanent residences may face deportation. You could even lose parental rights, such as custody or visitation, because of a felony conviction. And employers may avoid hiring you. Come on now, it goes real deep. Just because you did not want to disclose that asset, that piece of jewelry, you wanted to keep the car and not pay for it. You wanted to hide your house in your mama name. Is it worth it for you not to see your kids, for you to be deported, for you to have your passport revoked, for you to have that criminal record, for you to not be able to get hired from an employer because you defrauded the bankruptcy courts? It's not worth it. Tell the truth, get out of debt, find a good job, because you won't have that bankruptcy. You won't have that bankruptcy fraud on your record. You might have the bankruptcy, but the employer may say, listen, I'm going to work with you because I understand things happen. But when you have that criminal record on there, that's a whole nother story. It also says this, government benefits such as public housing, food stamps, and supplemental Social Security income could also be denied. So think again. Joseph said in the chat here, he says, moving your car into your cousin's name can get you in trouble. Absolutely. And it says, you're not that smart. They will find you. This ain't TV. It's right, Joseph. They will find you. They will find out what you did. And also it says here on this writing, it says, in conclusion, when filing for bankruptcy, you must list all your assets. All of them, everything. It doesn't matter. Again, it does not matter if you have assets joint with someone else. It does not matter. You have to list it. It says failure to do so could result in violations of bankruptcy laws and serious consequences, whether it's civil or criminal fraud, because the bankruptcy process can be confusing. If there is any doubt as to what information should be included in the bankruptcy forms to avoid fraud, you should seek the legal advice of an experienced attorney. An experienced attorney. All right. So we want you to be able to use the bankruptcy filings if you're in need of it. If you're not in need of it, find other ways. There's other ways that you can help get your credit and get your debt taken care of. But what we don't want you to do is we don't want you to file bankruptcy to try and defraud someone. We're going to have more information about this and other topics on this wonderful channel, the Juice Radio and Talk Show. But for now, we're going to be gone for now to our next topic. We got a whole bunch of stuff coming up. But remember to join us every Monday for our Money Monday series. We have so much other stuff coming up. We want to help people build their debt to a better place and eventually get rid of it. Get rid of that debt. Get rid of the debt, but get rid of it in a way that you don't have to go to prison for it, okay? Not that way. We don't want that way to happen, all right? All right, thank y'all so much for joining us on our Money Monday series. Next week, we've got another great topic. Go to our YouTube page, the Juice Radio and Talk Show. Click on the link. Click on it. The next topic that's coming up is already up on our channel, the Juice Radio and Talk Show on our YouTube channel. Click that notification bell. You'll be reminded when we go live. We're here every Monday at noon time for our Money Monday series. Pastor Grant will be back next week to join us again. She's on a much needed vacation, but she'll be back next week. We also have some more great programs coming up. Subscribe to the Juice Radio and Talk Show's YouTube channel. You see the logo on the screen here, the Juice Radio and Talk Show, and get ready for some fantastic commentary on this channel. All right. Y'all stay blessed, stay focused, and have a wonderful day. And share this video with others, especially family members, friends, co-workers, or someone you know that's about to file for bankruptcy. Share this video with them. You could possibly save them and make sure that they get this information in time, okay? Joseph says this as we close out. He said, bankruptcy judges deal with bankruptcy day in and day out. If you make a mistake, they know that and will work with you. If you're trying to hide, they know that and will nail you to the wall. Child, some of them will. Some of them, I think some of them like spies, Joseph. I think they are. All right, so share this video with others, you guys, especially, again, like those people who are getting ready to file bankruptcy and are thinking of possibly trying to do some stuff or hide some stuff. You don't want to do that, all right? Thank you so much for joining me. We'll be back with another great topic. Subscribe to the channel, the Juice Radio and Talk Show, and get ready for some more interesting information. Y'all have a blessed day today. See y'all on the next one. Bye.
A heartfelt thank you to all of our subscribers who joined us for this video. If you have not already subscribed, go to our YouTube channel, The Juice Radio and Talk Show. Subscribe and click on the notification bell to be alerted whenever we go live. Join our private Juice community. Go to www.thejuicecommunity.com and sign up for free. Join us, The Juice Radio and Talk Show. We have our Money Monday financial series. It is a lunch and learn program at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time on Mondays. Also on Monday, we have our reality series and hot topics at 7 p.m. Wednesdays, we have Bible study at 7:30 p.m. Thursdays, we have church news at 7:30 p.m. We also offer motivational moments, happy marriage lifestyle, news from a godly perspective, movie reviews, as well as our single moms club, Let's Talk Ex-Millennials, and of course, our Cooking with Clovis. Follow us on our podcast channel, the Juice Radio and Talk Show podcast, streaming on all podcast platforms. platforms. A great big thank you to our podcast production company, Noye Podcast Productions. They can help you create your own podcast also. Contact them today at houseofnoye.com. Thank you to our sponsor, Custom Apparel Shop. Have them complete your embroidery work and silk screening needs. Do you need a logo created for your fashion apparel or company? Contact Israel Mason today. That is 786-657-7501. Thank you to our main sponsor, Truth and Triumph Ministries. Truth and Triumph Ministries, a ministry that cares about telling people the truth so they can triumph in life. Thank you, Truth and Triumph Ministries, for all you do.